Bryan Betty. He's a member of New Zealand's COVID-19 Technical Advisory Group. Great to have you on the programme. New Zealand is a country that knows a lot about travel bans, and it's also one of the countries that has put a travel ban on 9 South African countries. So what do you make of the criticism then that travel bans don't work? We even heard just now Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, calling them travel apartheid.
Look, I think it's a very difficult situation. At the moment, we're not sure of the total impact of Omicron. That is, is it a less virulent variant of Delta, or is it more virulent? And I think it's taken a little bit of time to work that out. I think a move to try and restrict its spread through international travel, I can see the justification for it. The hope would be it was very limited, so the impact on countries such as South Africa was managed. However, we're in the very early days of this, and it's very hard to see whether, as I said, this is a milder version of Delta or it's a more infectious, virulent version of Delta, and that's the thing that's a real concern at the moment.
Because we just don't know, correct? If I'm clear, just to be clear with what you're saying.
Yeah, we know it's infectious, we know it spreads, we know it's got this R value of 2. At the moment, we don't know the impact. I mean, there's a lot of evidence starting to emerge that in a lot of cases it's milder, but does it cause the impact that we've seen with Delta across the world? So we're very early on in the days of this. There's a lot of work going into it, obviously, and a lot of concern. So the sooner that's unpacked, I think the sooner we can get back to some sort of normality with travel.
And what can be learnt from New Zealand's experience with travel restrictions and travel bans, and also your neighbour, Australia?
Look, I think New Zealand was in a very fortunate position. We're 3,000 kilometres from our nearest neighbour, Australia, so we've got a large sea around us. We were very effective in closing our borders, which is essentially air travel, and we were able to do that. Now, the big advantage that gave New Zealand is we were able to get our vaccination rates up. We now have about 90% of the population fully vaccinated, with COVID still restricted in terms of its spread. That's been a huge plus, and it has been a result of the travel ban, which has had a large impact on the country. It has had a large impact on New Zealanders living overseas, but at the end of the day, it has provided a barrier for New Zealand and an ability to try and get on top of the issue with vaccination. A very similar thing has happened in Australia at this point. So the travel bans or the air bans have worked in the Australasian context.
And so when you hear the WHO coming out with such comments, as the Director General said, travel bans don't work, it punishes countries for doing the right thing. Your reaction to such words?
Again, I think it's a very difficult situation. And for those countries that have experienced the disaster that has been COVID, wanting to restrict the spread of Omicron till more is understood about it is very understandable. I absolutely hear the difficulty this puts certain countries into in terms of the economic impact of this. Again, my hope that this is very restricted once we know what the exact situation is with Omicron and how to deal with it. However, one of the things I do agree with WHO, which is very important, we do have technologies now like vaccine passports. We do have vaccination for double vaccination. We do have certain standards in place that certainly make travel safer than it was at the beginning of the pandemic. And that's actually very important.
And do you think that this, let's call it a limbo period that we're in right now, we just don't know if it is as virulent as Delta, as you said, that this could be the tipping point that really encourages more vaccinations by people or also governments to make them mandatory? You know, we've heard that possibility being discussed from Germany yesterday, and that is a very powerful country, of course, within the EU.
Look, I think the longer the situation goes on, the more we see these variants start to occur. Vaccination is our only real defence. There is no doubt when situations like this arise, it really puts the impetus and the focus back on vaccination. And I think one of the things that's very apparent here, it's not just vaccination in the developed world, such as Europe, the US, the UK, Australasia. But actually, we need vaccination in the third world as well. We need it in Africa to shut down COVID, because the more that COVID circulates, the more we've got this potential for these variants to pop up that may, in fact, at the end of the day, be resistant to the vaccines we have at this point. Now, we don't think that's the case at the moment. It is a worry, but the vaccination being spread places like Africa and South America is so important.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Bryan Betty, live for us there from Wellington, New Zealand. We really appreciate it. Thank you.